Well, there is the field getting ready for the virtual Redlands Bicycle Classic as we begin stage one today with a virtual time trial and an uphill time trial at that to make it even more difficult on the trainers. See the riders getting ready from around the country and around the world as the Echelon Racing League continues this week as we cover some of America's best races. And this weekend, happy to be in virtual Redlands, California. Brad Soner here with Lauren Hall and Frankie Andreu. Frankie, you've been with us the last few weeks, but I want to welcome Lauren. Lauren, welcome to virtual racing. A very interesting place to be, different than where we thought we would be a year ago, but I understand you're just starting to get into virtual racing here.
New kid here, really enjoying it though. I'm experienced on the trainer myself a little bit. I really don't like it, but glad to be sitting here and announcing with you guys.
Yeah, much more fun to be on this side of the screen, I'll tell you that for sure. Frankie, any tips for the newcomer here as a cycling expert that is now turning into a virtual racing expert? What have been the biggest differences that you've seen out there with the virtual racing?
The starts I think are the main difference that we've seen with the virtual racing. It's the power that they have to put out, and then obviously they have to be able to recover and to be able to kind of recover and be able to stay with that group to be able to get to the end. But the starts are pretty impressive. And obviously Lauren, if you trained with power, you're going to see some incredible numbers that it's just amazing the talent that's out there. So it's a lot of fun watching.
Well, we talked about some of the races that we're visiting here at the Redlands Classic. I want to go back and take a look at last week where we went to the Gateway Cup in virtual St. Louis, Missouri. A good one there in the Echelon Racing League. Frankie, it was really 2 days of criterium racing. It came down to a sprint for both days. But in the women's field, we really saw the patience of Jackie Godby pay off. She really able to read the race well. Now, the question today, a shorter day of racing. So we're going to be wondering if Jackie Godby will be getting her chocolate reward at the end of the day today, but certainly going to be very interesting to watch Godby out there. So she ended up the first day at the Giro della Montagna just ahead of Laura Matson-Coe, who had a really good ride. Remember, Matson-Coe certainly going to be one to watch this week with Kirsten Full in third, Christina Grossman in fourth last week in the Echelon Racing League, and then Christy Tracy taking fifth place for Team Infinite. So, Frankie, big hill on those criterium courses. The course today a little different, but how do you think the time trial translate from a criterium last week?
Well, the criterium last week, with the hill with the Giro della Montagna is tough. And so going into a time trial like today, if you're talking about Jacqueline Godby, who's won a lot, pro triathlete, time trialing is kind of her specialty, and I think she'll be looking for that.
So let's talk about where things stand going into the weekend of racing here for the Redlands Bicycle Classic. Godby with a pretty serious lead here, 243 points to Krista Doble-Hickok's 146. Eleanor Wiseman sitting in third place overall. She could have a really good ride today. We're going to be talking about Eleanor and the Amy D Foundation squad throughout the day today. Again, sitting in third with 122 points, and then Christy Tracy sitting in fourth place for Team Infinite. Tracy will be another one to watch. Certainly a very good time trialist, but the question is, can they do well in a short time trial? That's what we're going to be watching out there today. All right, let's talk about some of the teams. We saw Triple X Racing up at the top. We talked about the Amy D Foundation as well, but looking at the team rankings here, Frankie, it's really about consistency for a lot of these riders. The names that you see here are the teams that bring full squads in the teams that race every week.
Yeah, and AVD Foundation has a very good squad. A lot of times what should happen is when the race starts breaking up, the pace that Jacqueline Godby is setting from Triple X Racing Athletico, it destroys the group. But AVD Foundation will still have 2 or 3 riders up there. Velocity Vixen will have a couple of riders. That's playing into their advantage by being able to get the points that they need to be able to lead this team classification right now.
All right, let's talk about Jackie Godby, certainly one to watch out there today. She's had an incredible season so far, not just in the Echelon Racing League, Frankie, but really all of her virtual racing endeavors have been unbelievable, undefeated here in the Echelon Racing League. But can she do it again today? Will she be able to do well on this short uphill time trial today?
No, incredible. With 11 races in the Echelon Racing League, she's won 8. And so she has been dominant. She sets a tempo that's comfortable for herself. Everybody else has to be able to keep up. She's able to actually have a really good punch and a sprint at the end. So she's comfortable breaking away, comfortable sprinting, and obviously she's talked about fueling herself. And she does that with a bunch of different ways with her hydration and food. As a 10-year triathlete, this time trial today sets up very, very well for her as she gets ready to be able to tackle stage number 1 of Redlands.
Well, you see 7 wins this season. Also made the selection for the national team. She represented the United States at the Esports World Championships, where she took 5th place. Also had a really good ride in the Swift Racing League Premier League, which I think she's back in, signing with Sarah's Pros Closet for the racing over there. So it's been a pretty good year, all things considered, for Jackie Godby, and she's got a really good opportunity to try to get another win out there today. So let's take a look at our riders around, as we should be just a few minutes away from getting started here. This is Jackie Godby's Pain Cave. Good to see she is back in her home Pain Cave. She was racing on the road. I think she was visiting parents maybe earlier, and didn't have her typical setup. Lauren, that makes a big difference, doesn't it? As a bike racer, you really want to have your sort of setup and have your Pain Cave dialed in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, from the highlight reel, she was somewhere else, and then to see all these great bikes in the background, like the motivation it takes, to be on the road at somebody else's house and, totally dialed in and racing. This is great. I absolutely love this.
Well, here is what she is battling today as we take a look at our Velo Viewer course profile. Frankie, it starts in downtown Redlands, but I think the action in this one is really at the end of it, the tail end, once they go over the freeway.
Yeah, Redlands has had a prologue many years in the Redlands race, and so it's flat, cutting through the city, kind of winding its way around, a little bit technical, so the riders are going to have to pay attention to how to handle those turns, and it's going to be critical that they're able to save energy in those turns, to save it for this last uphill finish, spiking right on the other side of the freeway. So 9.53 kilometers is about the distance, or 6 miles. And so that average gradient of 3%, but the max gradient 20%, that's what I'm talking about. You got to save some legs for that uphill finish, because that's really where the time is going to be gained.
Yeah, they used a course similar to this in Redlands back in 2012. Winning times there were somewhere around 12 to 13 minutes, so we'll see how well that translates here. They do change the course a little bit for the RGT platform here, try and smooth things out a little bit, but for the most part, this should be a pretty accurate interpretation of that 2012 Redlands time trial course. It ends up at Panorama Point up at the top of a hill, which there are plenty of those here in Redlands. So we'll be underway here shortly, guys. Lauren, I want to ask you about this time trial. I know it's a very difficult discipline to try to get right, but seeing that sting at the end, how does that change how you approach a time trial like this?
Yeah, you better be warmed up for these 6 miles, because it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt from the beginning to the end, and even worse at the end with that 20% gradient and on the trainers. It's like, I just can't imagine what that feels like. I feel sorry for them.
That's a really good point that Lauren brought up. Normally you have that start that's really critical and you can settle in. There's no settling in with this time trial. So that warm up is going to be critical, and they're going to have to put out some huge watts right from the beginning. Try to save it around the turns, but again, that 20% gradient, Lauren, you just mentioned, that's going to be the difference maker here. Godby lost at Benton Park on the final day of Gateway Cup. She's going to be looking for some revenge. We're going to see if that triathlete kind of competitiveness comes out in her for this time trial.
Yeah, I have a feeling we see a lot of very similar splits at the intermediate points, but the tail end of this, the second half, is where we're really going to see the big difference in time. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, try to do our best to keep an eye on as many riders as we can out there. I know a lot of people tuning in from around the country, around the world, to cheer on their favorite riders. If you are cheering on a specific rider or team, let us know in the chat. We're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, pretty much everywhere that the kids are hanging out on the internet these days. We figured out how to monitor those chats. So let us know, send a cheer for your favorite rider. We'll try and get some of those up on screen and get those out to the riders. Always nice to get a little encouragement. That's one of the things I miss about the real life racing. The real life fans, man, there's nothing like, you got the Pope guy, you got the food hand ups. Lauren, any memorable fans on the side of the road from your time on the bike?
Oh, the Colorado guy with his horns. He last race at Tour of Colorado, he had Katie Hall's name on the back of his jersey, but I'll take Hall as well for me. I mean, we're basically sisters, so yeah, that was pretty memorable.
Frankie, you probably saw your fair share of super fans in your time on the bike.
Super fans or super freaks? I don't know which way you want to call it, but the thing is, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought the crazier, like Tour of California, as the years went by at Tour of California, the costumes got more crazy. There was more creativeness in kind of the decorations and people running alongside and wearing, helmets or wearing nothing. I loved watching all that creative juices flowing with the support that they were showing for the bike race. And so, yeah, that is something I miss. We don't really have that here in the virtual world, but I also miss just talking with the riders. Usually you're at the race, you go down, you say, hey, how you feeling? What have you been up to? You find out a little bit of kind of interesting information of, how their food has been, or they had a bad McDonald's or whatever it may be. But it all kind of applies towards what they're trying to accomplish, which is to try to win today.
Yeah, I would say, like anything, it's not quite the same over Zoom. The feeling that you get from just being able to talk to the riders is certainly different. But I do have to say the riders have been pretty impressed with how well the courses have translated for the riders. The riders that have done the races in real life have said that the courses are pretty realistic on RGT. So that's nice. I guess that's a silver lining in this whole thing. Even though we're forced to race virtually here, a good chance to at least try out some of these courses. Maybe we'll bring back the opening prologue in Redlands. Maybe we'll see a panorama point time trial soon to open Redlands up. Although, Frankie, the opening time trial has been a long part of the history of Redlands. I know you and I, a few times we had to drive up to Big Bear and then drive right back down after the time trial was canceled up there due to snow. But the time trial has always been important in the GC battle at Redlands.
Yeah, in Redlands, the time trial is a lot of times the decision maker. I mean, you'll have some of the other stages like Oak Glen and Sunset Loop, but really a lot of times if it's a very close competitive field, that time trial is critical, and it's going to be no different today, as it looks like Artsberger is our first rider off.
Yeah, so watching our first riders taking off from the start house. These riders start at 30-second increments out on course. They'll be leaving the start house every 30 seconds. There is no drafting out there, so even if they come together, if they try and pass each other, the drafting is turned off in the time trial here, so it won't affect the riders. If you catch your 30-second man and your minute man, you can't sit on them and draft up ahead. So we'll be keeping an eye on any riders making the pass, seeing if anyone closes down that 30-second gap. But good opportunity right now to just kind of get some baseline times, get a good idea of what times will look like today and tonight. And we can talk a little bit about what we're seeing on screen. Frankie, I know you've been learning the ins and outs of the RGT platform here, so let's catch Lauren up. Starting with the left side of the screen, you see our leaders board. That is really tailored for road racing. It's not going to do much good here in the individual time trial, but what is going to be good to watch is the watts per kilogram. You can see their current wattage per kilogram next to their name. That is the accurate watts per kilogram at that moment that we're watching. Always something to keep an eye on to just give you a better idea of what zone they're in. Now, the bar to the left of their name, you see just a very small color bar there. That shows what power zone they're in based on their FTP, their functional threshold power. It's math formula, basically, that figures out your watts per kilogram, your power to weight ratio, and then figures out the different zones for it. So we'll be displaying the zones that the riders are in. And then we're going to see some metrics for time and distance. Now, those are going to be a little off in the corners because we're actually seeing the times of our camera bots that are out there on course. So we'll do our best to keep everyone updated on accurate times, and we're going to be looking a little deeper in the field this week as well, as we've been having a lot of requests for fans and friends, I guess I should say, cheering on their riders. So we'll be seeing more of that. You see those GYs up in the top left and top right corners showing speed, time, distance, all kinds of stuff. Again, the time is not going to be accurate, but speed and power should be. So we're seeing, there's one of our camera bots being caught right now from our friends at ZMS Live Streams. So this looks like Ferrero, one of our first riders out of the gate here.
Yeah, Ferrera, our second rider out of the gate, 28 years old, racing for the Amy D Foundation. She did 8 races in 2020, and she won the Category 4 race at San Rafael in 2019. So a good crit rider. A little bit of strategy is going to have to take place here. It's got to be some pacing because 10 kilometers. It's not like it's not like a short prologue, which normally might be 5 kilometers, maybe 3 miles. This is a little bit longer, and so there's going to have to be a little bit of strategy in how they kind of put out the watts on the early portion of this course.
This is Ferreira on your screen right now. Yeah, Lauren, you can see how solid these riders are on the trainers. I think there's definitely an art to riding the trainer. Have you found that? I mean, is there a different way to race on the trainer?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I've done a couple of group rides and just starting out, and you have to be going full gas. But then, how do you settle into a good rhythm, on a time trial, and then to have something left in the finish, for that last 20% gradient?
I would say much like real life racing, there's got to be an advantage to at least having a benchmark, Frankie, to be in one of the later riders to start. Is that personal preference to have a time to go up against, or is there a pretty distinct advantage to be in one of the later riders to start?
I think if you have a coach next to you that can relay that kind of information, I think it would be an advantage to be able to know kind of where you're at. Because at the finish, you're going to be able to figure out and know exactly what kind of watts they did for the total distance. And so if you can know that information for the first portion of this course, you can kind of like keep it near those ideal watts. And the second part of the course, if you still have the legs, you can gun it a little bit more to be able to ensure trying to be able to take a win, as we see Lauren Matson Co. Out on course right now.
Yeah, you want to talk about having a coach next to you. I want to show you the Zoom room here of Laura Matson Co. Looks like she's got a note taker with her here. So they are keeping close tabs on current times and splits here for the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team. That's what you need right there, Frankie.
Yeah, I mean, and it pays off because she won Benton Park at the Gateway Cup. She was second at the Giro de Montagna. So she's had a second and a first in kind of the first really RGT races that she's done. Coming out of Seattle, she's an orthopedic surgeon, and so she's been, she's a very good rider. Also, she was 7th at eSport World, so she's been doing virtual racing for a while, and really, it seems like the more she's doing the racing, the better and better she is getting.
Lauren, I got to think the hardest thing of this is trying to empty your tank in that time. You don't want to have anything left over, so I'm guessing that a lot of the information here is based on course recon. Would that be your guess as well?
Yeah, for sure. And what I just love about her partner standing right there beside her is like that is the Uber manager in your ear, while you're doing the time trial, yelling at you. And there they are in person. They can look at you and just get really close to you and give you a lot of motivation.
Yeah, some riders prefer a lot of chatter in their ear. Some riders like it a little more quiet. They just like to focus, get in the zone. But I almost think you have to have at least some intel on the course here. It's so short. Unless you pre-rode it and know it really well, it's going to be really hard to time that effort over a relatively short effort.
Well, as a new person here...
It was interesting seeing Esther Boval putting out almost 5.6 watts per kilogram, which is a lot. I mean, that's a big effort. Lauren Matson Co. Doesn't seem to be doing that big of an effort right now. And so a little bit different strategy where I think Boval's kind of striking out a little bit earlier on and Matson Co. pacing herself a little bit later on.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the first riders hit that really steep part. Lauren, there's probably some intel, I would guess, that the early riders could give to the riders going later. Although these riders did have a chance to pre-ride. They released the courses early, so I would guess most of these riders at this point have recon the course. But just like real life racing, right, there's a little bit of intel that comes back with each rider that returns to the team bus.
Yeah, that's super important. Just to know exactly what that feels like on the trainer is probably completely different. Where usually in real life you're worried about wind and gears, and now that's out the window. It's more just being efficient on the trainer.
I guess no weather conditions to report out there, so there's not much variability in the conditions for the riders. Bovia continuing to push here with some decent wattage. Jeff hanging right around 5 watts per kilogram, somewhere around there. Keeping it high early on here, Frankie.
Yeah, that's a lot. 5 watts per kilogram is a lot. Former hockey player out of Canada, 44-year-old Canadian rider, putting out big watts. And so one thing, Brad, I got to ask you, because we saw just a minute ago that Artsberger was about to be able to get caught from Ferreira. What were the time intervals that they were departing at?
30-second start intervals for
all right, so Ferreira has already made up 30 seconds on Artsberger as we go over here to Kristen Pohl.
A Pohl from the Canyon Esports team, another one to watch. That squad has been great this year. And Kirsten Pohl looking nice and focused here. I think they might have the best kits of the esports racing teams with the Canyon Esports team. Lauren, do you have a favorite kit yet?
I'm going to say that the Canyon kit is pretty slick looking. I mean, I'm kind of partial to USA Cycling kit these days, working for them now, but got to throw that in there. But yeah, the Canyon kit's really slick.
Hey, what was the response like to having our first esports world championships? I mean, from the inside, is USA Cycling excited about it? Did you feel the vibes?
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, we want all kinds of racing we can get, and we'll take the virtual racing, and hopefully looking forward to the real racing soon, and the build up to the Olympics. It's huge. We need this.
Take a look at this. I think Matson Co. is about to catch Ferreira now. We just saw them go around the bend. Great camera shot here from ZMS. So
yeah, Matson Co. making up. Sorry, Brad. Matson Co. making up almost a minute on the lower portion of this course. This is before they've even reached the climb, where I think bringing back those gaps will be quicker and easier. So pretty impressive is Monali Keller here from Insured, presented by Pedal Powers out on course.
Meanwhile, more riders leaving the start house. For those of you looking for riders at home, Morgan Chafin just rolled out. Looks like her Velocity Vixen team got in together because we had Holly Larson rolling out just a little bit before her. And Cheyenne Noble, also from the Velocity Vixen team, is taking a start now.
Looking at that time split, Laura, Matson Co. almost 45 seconds in front of Ferreira and Archberger. So Matson Co. putting out a very good time on the lower portion of this course right now.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an early best time, and this one may stand for a while because Laura Matson Co. is a serious virtual bike racer, a serious bike racer, I should say. So would not be surprised to see that early fast time set and stay for a while. Here's Chelsea Harris from the Project Echelon Racing team.
Chelsea out of Reston, Virginia. Right now, 215 watts, it looks like. So pretty decent cadence and kind of figuring out her rhythm. That's the hardest part is, once you do that warm up and then you kind of start, you got to be careful of, and I've had this happen to me, and Lauren, I'm sure you've had this happen to you, is the nervous energy kind of takes over and you end up going too hard in the beginning part of a time trial. Your heart rate gets super elevated and all of a sudden you find yourself redlined. And so that's the same on the trainer. You got to be careful of not redlining yourself too early in this race.
Totally right. I can't tell you how many times I went out too hard. I'm a sprinter. It's what I do. Then you just say, try again next race.
Certainly a unique discipline with the time trial. There's probably going to be a lot of riders in this race that will have good times that we probably haven't seen do real well in the road races and time trials, or road races and criteriums. It's a different type of rider, I think, that succeeds on a relatively short time trial like this. Frankie, am I right in thinking that this would be one of the shorter time trials that you would see in a season or career of racing?
Yeah, this would be on the verge of being a prologue, relatively close to being a prologue. It really wouldn't qualify as a time trial. And so, Redlands usually is an early season race, one of the biggest early season races, and everybody looks forward to being able to go to it. I mean, because it's 4 days of stage racing, which you don't have a lot of stage races anymore. And so the time trial is a critical component to it. And normally for Redlands, they'd make the time trial longer. It'd make it a decent length to maybe able to make it worth all the riders' time. And so, this is going to provide a very challenging course, and I think a very fitting challenge for a lot of these riders to be able to see who's going to be taking the lead on day number one.
Just over half of our starters have rolled off the line now, so we can say a majority of our women's field has taken to the course. I miss the mass starts of the road racing criteriums. I got to say, one of the more exciting parts of virtual racing is always the start, watching the riders power up, try and max out their power before the start. I imagine the same applies for the time trial. You want to make sure that you have your power as high as you can when you officially take the start, but it's always fun to watch them all together, try and sync up the power. Don't forget amateur racing in the Echelon Racing League. We go a week before the pro races. We're getting ready to head to the Joe Martin stage race up next in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Amateurs can race January 20th. That will be the same course that the pros will use the following week for the virtual Joe Martin stage race. You can sign up now at echelonracingleague.com. Just click on the races tab. Free to enter, and the RGT platform is free to ride on as well. So some free virtual racing for you at the Joe Martin stage race.
It was kind of interesting seeing that last screen where you had all the riders on. Some riders, riding out of the saddle, some riders riding in the saddle, big gears, small gears. One of them I saw, it might have been Artsberger, I'm not sure who it was, looked like she was in a massive gear, pedaling like 60 RPMs, and I'm assuming if it was Artsberger or even if it was Beauville, if during the last part of the course, maybe they're on the climber and they're struggling on that 20% grade, but it was very evident that there was a change in cadence from some of the riders compared to the other ones that were on the screen.
Yeah, you can almost tell where they are in course just by watching the cameras, figuring out how hard they're riding. All right, so here's our first look at intermediate splits. This is awesome. Laura Matson Co. with a 541. Pole going to be sitting in second. Mona Lee Keller in third. Ferreira with the fourth fastest split. Artsberger with the fifth split. Harris in sixth. Holt in seventh with Pitzer in eighth. So, guys, a good look at our first opening splits here. This is actually a bigger spread than I thought. Stephanie Sidlick just slotting in ahead of Lauren Matson Co. now. So, a new fastest split here.
She's one of my picks for today, actually, Brad. I've raced against her, and she was always a very strong rider. And to see her out on the virtual racing, it's fun to see. I know she's strong.
Yeah, Sidlick racing for Canyon Esports from Pittsburgh. She's a good climber, so a good time trialist and a climber. So both of those actually will appeal to her qualifications for doing well by the end of today. But Lauren Matson Co. now having to be able to make up a little bit of time. The 20% grade is going to be a game changer. So maybe Matson Co.'s holding back a little bit compared to Sidlick, but that's going to be interesting as they battle it out. And again, we still have some of the stronger riders to come a little bit later on in the race, just like in real life, right? They save the big guns for a little bit later on. That's exactly how it's going to play out.
All right, well, here we go. Watching Laura Matson Co. climb the final kilometer of racing here as she goes under the Flamme Rouge, and you can see how quickly the road kicks up here. Oy, oy, oy.
That's walking pace. That's my pace. That's how I'd be going up this climb. Look at how steep. I mean, normally on TV, you can't really tell the steepness, but like in this virtual world, I mean, this looks steep. This looks like a wall that they're tackling right now.
Well, not much that the Director Sportif can do now, other than telling you to pedal a little harder. It's a 1 kilometer uphill to the finish. Yeah.
What do you think he's probably telling her? Well, I mean, right now he's not telling her anything, but...
Yeah, I don't think there's much left to tell her. To be honest, I think most of the information was about the course. She wouldn't have been able to get very good split information, especially being one of the early starters. So I think he was tracking the course. That's a total guess. I have no idea. He could just be reading her a book or something. I don't know. But it looks like a spreadsheet there. I'm trying to get a look at trying to spy on his clipboard here.
Yeah, the key right here, though, is that she can't blow up before the top of the climb. If you get you're obviously going to be redlined, you're going to be pegged, but you have to be able to push over the top to keep a little bit of momentum to be able to get to the finish. And that's what Lauren Matson Co. is doing as we go back here to Pitzer, who's racing for Inshore, presented by Pedal Power. Power's a little bit lower right now at about 185 watts per kilogram, as looks like, wow, Eastler just coming flying by. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see if we can follow Megan Eastler here, because I have a feeling that she might have a pretty good time. And I'm not just saying that because we watched her pass her 32nd rider. I'm saying that because she's had some pretty incredible results so far in the Echelon Racing League. Just waiting for that big break, waiting for just the right combination of factors. And this might be it, the short uphill time trial. Maybe Isler has just been waiting for her opportunity here for the Project Echelon team.
And Lauren, you were a previous runner, correct?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, so Megan Isler also. Megan Isler, 23 years old, and she was a runner for Iowa State. And so we've seen with other cyclists, when they come from that running background, they have huge aerobic engines, and that really plays a big part in being able to do well in a shorter distance, like a prologue or a time trial like we're seeing here. So the 23-year-old really with a good chance to be able to put in a good time right now as she's out on course.
Yep, young and can be in the hurt box and know what it feels like and just be comfortable being there. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of really successful riders that have come from other disciplines to riding in virtual racing. The learning curve is certainly less steep to go from running to virtual racing than to go from running to real life racing. There's obviously more to learn when it comes to positioning and pack tactics and how to ride in a group and all that stuff. Whereas virtual racing, you just have to learn the game. You have to learn how to play the game, where to draft, where to rest, where to ride, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've seen some really good results from multidisciplinary athletes coming to race here in the Echelon Racing League. All right, Matson Co. on her way up to the top here. And looks like this will be one of our first early fast times.
Look at that, 6.5 watts per kilogram, and that'll be one of our first finishers. She's caught the two riders that started in front of her as Matson Co. finishes up.
And she is cooked.
Yeah, gonna have to wait for the time split. Right now, look at that, Angie Buonasisi, 8:08 time split, 8:33 Christy Tracy tied with Stephanie Sidlick, and they were about 10 seconds in front of Laura Matson Co. So almost 30 seconds faster. Angie Buonasisi is out on course right now in the lower parts of the course. Look at her. Yeah, completely. Well, I'm glad she can coast. You don't even have to worry about pedaling anymore.
We'll get a camera on Angie Buonasisi as pick up Artsberger heading to the finish now.
Artsberger, an engineering student out of Colorado, and she's 24 years old. She's going to be a little bit further down, but at least putting in a good ride, getting the legs going, and participating in this Redlands, the first day of Redlands Cycling Classic. But that 20% grade is, I can imagine the trainer feeling like it's locked up, like you have a problem, almost wanting to get off your bike right when you get to the bottom of it.
Something wrong with this thing. This thing's warm. It's like the old, my brake must be rubbing.
Yeah. I don't envy them having to do sunset loop on the trainer.
Yeah, no, one thing about the way that the racing is run this weekend is that the riders, it is sort of stage race rules. So the riders have to do the time trial if they want to race in the Sunset Road Race tomorrow, and then the climb up to Oak Glen on Sunday. So if you don't finish one of those days, there are no time cuts, but it would really just be unless you DNF'd yourself, you are not allowed to continue racing in the Echelon Racing League. So everyone has to do it, whether they like it or not, and they got to get to the finish line.
And remind me, is it by time for the overall winner, or is it going to be by points?
The time will translate into points. So, they run a GC time for the stage race, and then the winner of the stage race gets a certain amount of points that go to the Echelon Racing League overall scoring.
So the overall winner of the Redlands is going to come from time. The overall winner of Redlands will come from the fastest time, which Oak Glen and
Correct.
Sunset Loop could definitely be game changers with that. Godby, intermediate time, yes, 8:07. Now that's not really unexpected because we talked about how many victories she's already had by winning almost every single race she has entered, just recently being defeated by Lauren Matson Co. The final day of the Gateway Cup. But Godby is a time trial specialist, a 10-year professional triathlete. This really does kind of suit her abilities. And look at the watts difference that we've seen from some of the other riders. She's right now 370, which is that's a pretty big effort right now.
Yeah.
Not a bad split to Angie Bonacisi. I thought these would be a lot bigger gaps up to a rider like Jackie Godby. Bonacisi only a second behind. Christy Tracy about 20 seconds back. That's more like what I expected to see the gap up to Jackie Godby. So Bonacisi having a great ride today. Oh, man.
Ouch.
Good look at Megan Easler climbing her way up to the top.
It's kind of interesting when you see the virtual world of the rider actually kind of trying to get up a 20% grade, how they're out of the saddle completely, throwing the bike everywhere. But when you come back to the images here, it looks so calm. They're just sitting on the bike, turning the pedals, although they're, it's so difficult. Cadence at 70 RPMs, a little bit under 300 watts right now is Megan Easler trying to be able to get up to that finish line.
Meanwhile, Sue Lynn Holt from the Amy D Foundation up next to hit the line. Yeah, there's going to be a big group coming together here. Stephanie Sidlick up the road, the fourth fastest time here. I'm going to guess she's just gone past Easler? Or Easler's coming up here? Well, either way, they're all going to come together at about 450 meters to go here.
You know what, guys? You can tell how hard it is when their cadence is only 60s and 70s, versus 100 or 90. You know that's really giving her that gradient.
Look at Easler. That's how you finish a time trial right there, Frankie.
Yep.
That's where you need the bucket right next to the bike. Look at that effort. Incredible. This is the type of rider you want on your team. So committed and giving everything. It's inspiring to be able to see how much she wants this victory. The young 24-year-old out of Oregon just doing an incredible ride.
Yeah, Laura, when we talk about the overlap of bringing riders from virtual racing to real life racing, this is the kind of rider you want to look at. It's not so much the rider that can put big power numbers up, but the rider that can make themselves suffer. And so far, that's been Easler. Doesn't look like she made it into the top 10 for splits here. And again, the time that you're seeing for Easler here is, or the time on the screen, the 27:21 up in the top right corner is not her time. That is the time of our camera bot out on course. I can't believe it's all staying down here. I think you're right, Frank.
Yeah.
You better have a bucket next to you after this one. Lauren, I know you've done these efforts before in your life. It's as soon as you stop when it hits you.
Man, she needs somebody there to pat her on her back. My gosh, that's great. What a great effort.
All right, Anna Russell hitting the line next. So we should have our first 10 times in here pretty soon, and we'll get a leaderboard going here with our top finish times. Back to our intermediate times. Chris Doble-Hickok sliding into 5th place with her intermediate time of 5:37. You can see how close they were. Look at Sidlick at 33, Tracy at 33, then a big gap up to Bonacisi and Godby. They put a big effort into the front end of this one. It looks like maybe two different strategies that we're seeing here. The riders that go sort of sub 5:10 in the first half and the riders that go over 5:10. Doble-Hickok going deep here as she comes up to 1K to go.
That's Catherine Amon we're looking at from Velocity Vixen, 23 years old. 300 watts, so nice job as she reaches kind of, there's a few little rollers. It's not dead flat before you get to that 20% grade. She's out of New Hampshire as you see Crystal Doble-Hickok now. putting in a very good ride. You know, she's a small frame. She's a very good climber, and so she's been at a little bit of a disadvantage for Giro della Montagna, Benton Park, some of these other criteriums. This actually, the whole entire Redlands suits more her style. So putting in a good time today is going to be extremely important to keep her in the hunt to try to win this thing overall. But she does. She has a very kind of unique riding style, which is a lot of it out of the saddle as she's trying to put out that power. And she doesn't have a lot of weight to be able to get behind pushing on those pedals as some of the other riders do.
It's going to be super exciting to watch her this weekend as one of the riders in this field that will have done both the virtual Redlands Bicycle Classic and the real-life Redlands Bicycle Classic. She actually won on Oak Glen last year on the climb up to Oak Glen. A little different course here for the virtual version, but Chris Doble-Hickok, a rider with experience in the real-life version of the Redlands Bicycle Classic as well. All right, back with Jackie Godby on maybe the steepest part of the course here, Lauren. Oi, oi, oi.
Oh, look at that. Is that 430 watts right now? Oh my gosh, and 70 RPM.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, standing. Yes. Oh my gosh.
No, and that's what's amazing. It is amazing, and that's not 430 watts for not fine. You can do a sprint, you get up to 600 watts. This is 430, 440 watts that she's holding for, 3 to 4 minutes. So it's an exceptional amount of training to be able to get to this point, and so she's doing a great ride right now.
Anybody watching, go try that. Go try that on the trainer. It's hard.
She's got her work cut out for her. I mean, obviously we talked about these other times. I mean, Bonacisi was right up there. Jacqueline Godby with the fastest split, but it was only 1 second in front of Bonacisi. And so those two riders are relatively close. Christy Tracy was about 20 seconds back on that. And we know Christy Tracy, from her past performances, she's going to be one to watch out for when we get near the end.
Yeah, another time trial expert that we wait to see if it translates to the short uphill time trial that they have today. Godby back out of the saddle here.
And also, if you look back at the amateur Redlands that they held last weekend, Esther Beauville won the time trial, and Christy Tracy was second. So that familiarity of the 20% grade could come in handy, especially when we're only talking about maybe a 5 to 10 second difference in the early time splits.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch how these splits line up with the power file at the end of this one. We'll take a look at the riders' power files and see how they line up with the effort and time splits that they're putting in. Certainly a lot to be learned for the guys. I think I see a lot of the men in the Zoom room starting to jump in. I think they're watching this one intently, looking for some tips from the pro women's field here.
Seems like just like in real life, the women would usually race first or vice versa and give a little bit of feedback to whoever was up next.
Chris Doble-Hickok coming to the line now as she'll end her effort. And I think she has maybe grabbed the bucket already. You see she keeps pedaling. She's trying to keep that from happening here. A little cool down on the way down. So Godby going to be coming in here. Real was there. Noble there as well. We're going to have a lot of big finishers coming in here soon. Here's Godby hitting the line.
Yeah, Doble-Hickok 6 in that intermediate sprint. Godby coming through the intermediate sprint was first. Waiting to try to get some final times to be able to see if Godby was able to kind of continue that fast pace to be able to put her in the first position to be able to win on day, or not win on day one because the race isn't over, as we see Jennifer Real out on course right now.
All right, so Laura Matson-Coe with your current fast time out there, a 19:24. Sidlick with a 19:32, and Mona Lee Keller with a 20:17 for third fastest time out there so far. Pohl ended up 2024, Beauville ended up 2026, and Easler ended up at 2050 for sixth place. So Matson-Coe with the current fastest time. All right, so Real rolling through, and I think that might have been our last starter. We check the start list here, and I think Real is going to be our final rider.
Jennifer Real, 42 years old. Talk about a nice place to be able to train, riding outside or inside, because she comes from Hawaii. And earlier this year, she actually organized a time trial in Hawaii, which was in July. So trying to be able to kind of keep some semblance of normalcy for the cycling world over there.
All right, so there you go. Jackie Godby finishes up almost a minute ahead of Laura Matson-Coe at an 18:22 as Christopher Hickok will slot into third place at a minute third down on Godby. Stephanie Sidlick in fourth place for Canyon Esports at a minute 10. Great ride for Stephanie today. Christy Tracy takes a fifth place for Team Infinite. Good ride for Monnalie Keller as well. Another insured presented by Pedal Power rider inside the top 10. Kirsten Pohl for Canyon Esports ends up in seventh. Esteboville turns in just a couple minutes slower than Jackie Godby in eighth, and then Megan Easler in ninth place, and Morgan Chafin in 10th. Frankie, a lot of familiar names here in the top 10 list, but I don't think anyone's surprised to see Jackie Godby at the top. I am surprised to see her win by over a minute over Laura Matson-Coe. Domination out there today.
Yeah, especially how close the intermediate sprint was. I mean, Angie Bonacici went out super hard. Obviously was close to Godby, but nowhere near the end. But Godby, a very good, triathlete. She translated that into the time trial. But man, to have a minute lead, that's pretty impressive. Crystal Doble Hickok doing a fantastic ride. Laura Matson-Coe also doing a great ride. Canyon Esports maybe with a little bit of an advantage on the team side. Insured, presented by Pedal Power, has a couple riders up there also. So that could play out a little bit more later on when we head in towards Oakland and the Sunset Loop. And of course, from our previous experience, we know how hard those courses are. A lot can happen. It's not just going to come down to this time trial.
Lauren, these are God-level power numbers that we're seeing from Jackie Godby, but she's been double, triple, quadruple verified. They submitted the power files. We verified the trainer. She is the real deal, and these are really incredible rides for Jackie Godby.
Yeah, nobody else is pushing on those pedals. She's definitely got a strong grip on the e-racing, obviously, but I think you got Krista and Stephanie sitting in a good spot, especially for the next couple of days. So I'm really excited to be a part of this and to watch this play out.
Lauren, a rider like Jackie Godby, obviously we want to bring these riders onto the road, into real-life racing. And for a lot of riders, they really haven't been in the real-life bike racing world. They're either coming from triathlon or from a different sport like running, or they're just indoor specialists. The question is, though, if you have someone like Jackie Godby who can put out incredible power, and I know you've seen riders like this come through your teams, how do you train them to be good bike racers, knowing that they can put out the wattage, but can you teach someone how to be a good biker as well? It's not guaranteed that Jackie Godby is going to be able to go into a real-life bike race and do well with these numbers.
Just like any of us, there's a learning curve to the racing in the peloton in real life, and she too can probably do the exact same thing. And it looks like she'd be a great breakaway specialist. So give her a shot. Let's see what she can do. That's how we all got our start.
All right, well, Jackie Godby takes another win here in the Echelon Racing League, winning the opening prologue of the Redlands time trial, getting ready for our pro men coming up next, about 30 minutes away from the first rider taking the line. So we're going to take a short break, thank some sponsors, and we'll be back in just a little bit with pro racing for the pro men in the Echelon Racing League Virtual Redlands Classic.
The world is changing.
I'm looking to do things better.
To improve.
Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it's right.
I embrace change.
I seek adventure.
and discovery.
Explore the unexplored.
To know the unknown.
Even in the toughest moments, we ride together.
Even in the moments when we're at our limits,
We support each other. It's time to move up a level.
we push that little bit harder.
Changes we make now will make the future better for all.
The efforts we put in today
We'll pay dividends tomorrow.
We all have the power to up the game.
To build something better.
It's not time to play.
It's time to get real.
it's time to be a game changer.
As an athlete, getting marginally better is one thing. Getting exponentially better puts you in a whole new ballgame. Biomoto uses a proprietary digital process to capture movement at 200 frames per second and 70 sensors per foot to measure ground-based forces, resulting in advanced motion analysis that's up to 10 times more accurate than orthotics. It's the data generated by this process that allows Biomoto to construct custom insoles that make athletes faster, stronger, and more stable, and results in an unprecedented 95% success rate.
Is brought to you by Biomoto. Find the motor in you. By Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. By Hyper Ice, move better and enhance your recovery with Hyper Ice. And by Nations, enhancing the reach of esports. A pretty cool look at the Redlands of times past. These were from 1924 postcards in Redlands that you could mail out. Some of the bigger attractions of the city of Redlands back in the day. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit since then in the modern day Redlands, California, but always good to go back and take a look at where things came from. All right, pro men are 26 minutes away from getting rolling as we have just wrapped up our pro women's race where, again, Jackie Godby just dominating the field out there with an 18:22, fastest time of the day for the women. Laura Matson-Co ends up second place at a minute 2 down on Jackie Godby. Krista Doble-Hickok also a minute down at a minute 3, and then Stephanie Sidlick and Christy Tracy rounding out the top 5. So Jackie Godby putting up some pretty incredible power numbers out there today, but we're confident that Godby's numbers are accurate because of the verification process of the Echelon Racing League. Each week, the riders have to submit some certain information to make sure that things are fair and equal out there on course. We caught up with Echelon Racing League Commissioner Eric Hill to talk a little bit more about that.
One of the frequent topics of esports and virtual racing is transparency and fairness. At the Echelon Racing League, we've worked hard to ensure that our racing is fair for all, and we've taken some additional steps to making sure that that's the case. One thing that we've done is created the ebiopassport.com website. This was created by one of the racers in the Echelon Racing League because they believe in transparency as well. Anybody can use this site and create their own profile by simply going to ebiopassport.com and clicking sign up. I already have an account, so I'll click sign in, and it authenticates right through your email accounts. It'll bring me here to my profile, where you'll be able to see who I race for, links to our team pages, equipment that I use, power metrics and links to verification of that information, weigh-in videos, and others. It also gives you the capability to search other riders, and look at their information and their profiles as well. This creates a community that is safe, fun, and transparent for all to compete in. Another thing is results. How do we get results? How do we see what events are going on? How do we see what some upcoming events are? And, this is cool, what courses are available? What magic roads have been developed that I could possibly ride? Another community member has developed the rgtdb.com website. If you go to this website, you can see events that are upcoming and register for them right through the site. Results for upcoming events. These results update every 15 seconds. So for an event like the time trial, you could be watching that page live and see how your favorite rider is stacking up against the competition every 15 seconds. You can look for series, and this is a really cool aspect of this tool, magic roads. You can come in and you can search by length and by profile or by name of that road. You can pull it up, download the file, pull it into your RGT account, and you can ride free.
Big thanks to the team over there. We're going to catch up with Jackie Godby, fresh off another win here in the Echelon Racing League. Jackie, we knew the uphill time trial was going to be tough. Was it as tough as you thought it was going to be, or tougher?
Oh, it was incredibly tough. Those final two hills where you get the gradient up to 25%, I don't even think I saw my screen. I just saw gray. That was incredibly tough.
Brad?
Yeah, for the most part, is this a second half time trial? I mean, it seems like the race is really won and lost on that uphill section.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a second half time trial. And I was actually talking with my director sportif, also known as my fiance, today, and we were calculating a pace plan, really trying to negative split the race, just taking it out even without sacrificing speed on the front flatter half of the course, and then just getting ready to unleash with some standing efforts, with some VO2 efforts once we hit those really nasty climbs. And it paid off. As much as I was in pain, I think we had a really good strategy today.
Was it difficult for you in
How's it going?
the short effort? I mean, certainly different than a normal time trial for you.
It was actually more fun. I really enjoyed the effort of watching those turns
Oh,
and
yeah.
knowing,
Nice
I could
and
get this 5
short
or
and
10
sweet.
second break.
Sorry, it sounds like we got some of our guys bombing the Zoom room here that haven't figured out how to use the mute button. We're only a year into the pandemic. We should be able to figure it out here pretty soon. Jackie, last question as we move to more traditional racing tomorrow. Obviously a confidence boost with the win today, but how did things change for you now with a short effort tonight? Does this affect your prep at all? I mean, is it different prepping for a road race tomorrow, having done a short effort today?
I mean, it's not even really a short effort. I'm putting a 20-minute warm up on the front end, a 30-minute cool down on the back end to really get the effort out. So, I'm still going to be putting in over an hour of cycling today. I'm treating it just like I did a longer effort race tonight with the same sprint, the same power. We're still looking at a long, hard 3-day race series, and I'm going to prep and recover just like a normal day one.
Well, you made the 18 minutes look so easy out there. I thought you just jumped on and cruised to a win. Jackie, congratulations, and we'll be looking forward to watching you the last 2 days of the Redlands Bicycle
Well, thank you
Classic.
so much. Have a good evening.
All right, we are out here, Camino Escuela in Tucson, Arizona, for the first ever Camino Escuela Hill Climb Championships. Competitors here. Sean is going to be rocking the e-bike, the new Subito e-bike, weighing in at like 30 pounds, an additional, I don't know what that does, 200 watts. Heather, all natural. The course, I mapped it out earlier, it's about 1.3 kilometers. I think it gains about 30 to 40 meters, that's around 100 feet, and it's just short of a mile. Yo! Shooting at the demons,
again. Well, I guess this is the main reason why I'm writing this song.
I heard you calling, I saw your sleepless face and I felt hard. I guess I'm falling for you, girl, I can reach the stars.
Now.
Oh, the nights we couldn't sleep, I was there carrying my gun, shooting at the demons, see your dreams, making them more fun. Yeah, and if you wanna run away from the best you've done, yeah, I'll be there to save the day. I'll be your rising sun.
All right, that just happened.
Yeah, I'm the champ. That was crazy. I mean, I hit my button and she had no chance.
I thought I was dropping you. And you were just messing
I
with
was stretching, getting ready for my effort. I did a little bit of this, one of these, and then I just went.
We thought you were like getting dropped too.
This is how it feels. I feel so powerful right now.
My name is Dr. Alan Lim. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I've spent most of my career working with professional cyclists. For years, I've been getting riders to ride on static trainers that don't move. But now, with the Infinity technology by Ceres on the MP1 platform, you have fore-aft movement as well as side-to-side movement that ultimately greatly enhances comfort. Every single contact point can move in a more natural way, and over the long haul, what that means is you don't get beat up by your static trainer. With just that little bit of motion, you start to replicate what you feel in the outdoors, and that changes the entire experience. I think that one of the big reasons for that is that we're naturally tuned to want to move. Our vestibular system, when it's activated, ends up, creating, I think, a sense of harmony or joy that just isn't the same when you're not able to move. It's like the difference between a rocking chair versus a static chair. And a lot of it, I think, is about expectation, because when you get it on a bicycle, you expect it to move. And so when you get on the MP1 platform with the Infinity technology, you get that same level of movement. 6 degrees side to side, 9.5 inches fore and aft. And what that does is it creates an experience that is just so much more enjoyable, so much more fun than being on a static trainer. When you look at the design of the MP1 platform, it's not just designed for the H3 trainer by Ceres. It's also designed to be compatible with almost every new smart trainer currently on the market. So if you don't own the H3, but you have your own trainer at home, odds are this will be compatible with the MP1. Another unique feature of the Infinity technology on the Ceres MP1 platform is that it's best in class. You have 6 degrees of side-to-side motion and 9.5 inches of fore-aft motion. That's movement that specifically replicates what you feel outdoors, and there's no other competitor on the market that can simulate that type of movement. It's certainly not the kind of movement that you can get by just putting tennis balls under your trainer. Cycling isn't just about your legs and your lungs. It's also about being able to handle the bicycle, and that takes a lot of control in both your core as well as all of these small stabilizer muscles. On an indoor trainer that is static, you're just not getting any of that specificity. But with the Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform, you are able to use and have to use all of those stabilizers to control the bicycle. The net effect is that not only do you get a workout for your legs and your lungs, but you also get a workout for your core. The Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform creates the best-in-class movement for any trainer's system. You've got 6 degrees of side-to-side movement, 9.5 inches of fore-aft movement, and the net result is way more comfort, way more fun, the ability to use your core or stabilize your muscles, and you've got a platform that is compatible with most trainers.
Well, there they are, the pro men getting ready to tackle the Redlands Bicycle Classic opening prologue here at the virtual Redlands Classic, part of the Echelon Racing League. Just wrapped up our pro women's race. An awesome battle up there as Jackie Gobby once again dominates in the women's field. Brad Soner here with Lauren Hall and Frankie Andreu for more Echelon Racing League action. I hope you guys are ready. I hope you got a little bit of rest. You were able to get some fluids in you and ready for our second round of time trial racing here. Lauren, your first experience commentating and watching some virtual RGT racing, your takeaways from the first time trial?
Absolutely love it. Glad I'm not doing it. Glad I'm on this side of things and letting those gals and guys hammer it out. And they're tough competitors. Hats off.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Loved watching it. Glad I'm not doing it. Frankie, before we get to talking more about today, let's go back and take a look at last week, the Gateway Cup, because we're going to see a lot of the same riders here in this week's race that we saw racing last week at the Giro della Montagna and the race up on the hill there. But another impressive weekend of racing. Now, the racing here obviously very different in Redlands than what we saw last week, but another dominant ride by the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team. This time it was Matt Main, the amateur rider who comes from the amateur ranks to join the pro ranks. The top 10 riders from the amateur race each week get an automatic bid to race in the pro ranks. Main takes his chance to take not one but 2 wins on the weekend as Matt Main cleans up for the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team. Frankie, just to show you, there's a lot of talent out there in virtual racing, and you never know where you're going to find it. This guy is a father out of Iowa racing in his garage, but he found himself at the top of the leaderboard for the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team at the Gateway Cup. So you see Maine getting just ahead of Ned Bowen and Will Harden, your top 3 at the Gateway Cup Giro della Montagna. Alec Jones ended up 4th place and Chris Navin in 5th place. So those will be some more of the names to watch out there, as those are the guys that did well last week. Typically, we see some of that carry over into the next week of racing. So here's where things stand going into this week of racing at the Echelon Racing League, as again, it's all about points here in the overall. The riders compete on time during the day, and then based on their placing wherever they end up, they then get those points or that time translated into points. So Ben Thomas, our current leader of the series out of the UK for Team Tour 2000, presented by Cowles, with 145 points. Much closer here in the men's battle in the GC race, with Neil Ostenfeld sitting in 2nd place, Matt Usborn sitting in 3rd with 107 points, Charlie Revel in 4th place, his Team Tour 2000 teammates sitting up at the top, with Hayden Warner sitting in 5th place for the Above and Beyond Cancer presented by Bike World team. So that sets up a good team battle as well here in the Echelon Racing League, because we see a lot of consistency like we talked about in the women's race. You can see how close things are for the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team, with Team Tour 2000 at 324 points, and then Restart Racing sitting in 3rd place with 244 points. Now the riders can start a maximum of 6 riders, a minimum of 4 riders each week in the Echelon Racing League, and all of those riders will take points up to the top. Now, Insured presented by Pedal Power, let's talk about this squad and their star, the new rider, Matt Main, for this relatively new squad of racing here this year. They were, well, we'll talk about the sponsor team name, but a really impressive ride from Matt Main, we'll say over the last 4 weeks, because he had a great ride in the amateur ranks as well, and then a quick rise up to the top. Lauren, I love these stories. This is like when we watch the Cat 3 rider that just advances so quickly through the fields and then ends up in the 1-2 race. Although this time they didn't get dropped the first time. Matt Main actually got 2 wins out of it, coming out of nowhere. So it's going to be really interesting to watch and see if he can replicate that this week.
Yeah, it's always fun to see something like that, and you never know. And when you have your eyes on those people and they come out of nowhere like that, they're definitely going to be watched for the next couple of races. And it looks like he has his teammate's bike right there beside him. Maybe his son or daughter, I don't know. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is, I think, his son's bike setup, and rides right alongside Matt when he's racing in the garage. Pretty cool there. You only get one shot like that, though, where you're the underdog, right, Lauren? After you get that win, after you burst onto the scene, you got a big target on your back. That changes the way that you race things. Not so much in a time trial, maybe, but when we get to the circuit races for Saturday and Sunday, Matt Main is no longer an underdog. He's got a bullseye on his back. That changes the way you have to race things.
Yeah, for sure. There's no more freebies. There's no more not knowing who he is and letting him up the road or anything like that. It's eyes are on you and for sure being watched. And yeah, but a time trial for sure. He could probably get after it today and put in a good time, and then it's everybody chasing him.
Yeah, the big question, how do they do on the short time trial course? I've been calling it a short time trial course, although Jackie Godby corrected me and said it's actually a longer effort because of the warm-up and the cool-down as we take a look at our course profile powered by Velo Viewer. Lauren, it's flat at the start. I know you've raced on these very roads of Redlands, California, but once you sort of leave the downtown area is where the climbing really starts. It's really once they go over the freeway, I think, is where this race is won and lost.
Yeah, you got to know how to go out the gate with the virtual racing, but then settle in and getting ready for that last climb and that percentage, that 20%, and then just to finish off like you saw Godby doing. You have to have something left in the tank for that.
6 miles of total riding. They're going to pick up just under 1,000 feet of elevation with a 20% max grade. You can see where that is on the Velo Viewer profile there, the red section of the climb with an 18% section in the orange section for an average gradient of it's only 3.1%, but most of that comes in the last quarter of the riding. You can see where it really kicks uphill there. So, Lauren, I think there's a lot of riders out there that are glad that this one was retired in 2012 from the real-life Redlands Bicycle Classic. This is not a friendly course for riders that don't like going uphill.
Yeah, you're right. But then at the same time, all the climbers that are gearing for Oak Glen or Sunset, could wish it would stay and be there. They like the climb and the longer bits to it. They don't want sprinters to be anywhere near them because then they have to contest for sprints. So maybe there's some riders that really are glad to have that time trial.
Hey, so Lauren, you shared with me before the start of our ride today as we're just watching our first men getting ready to take off from the start pen. You have some memorabilia with you today from your time at the Redlands Bicycle Classic. We were talking about some of the trophies that the riders keep. Looks like you kept your medal.
Always. I keep a little bit of everything. When you said that I was going to be announcing or asked me to announce, I went into the archives and found one of the medals from 2017. I found our team. This is 2011. We did our team photo shoot actually at the top of the time trial course, or at the top of Sunset, as a matter of fact. And then one of my favorite memories is Ruth on Sunset. She bridged across to the break and won solo, and it was amazing to be a part of that. And I love this race. So
this
thanks
is
for
such
having
a
me
classic American race, isn't it? I mean, it's a race that just about every American bike racer that's gone to the pros has been through Redlands. They say Redlands is where legends are born. In fact, I think it says on your medal right there. They use that in a lot of their marketing, but it really is true. I mean, pretty much every pro bike racer at some point went through Redlands for at least a year. I would be very hard pressed to find riders. There's probably a few of the juniors that skip straight to Europe, but pretty much everyone raced Redlands. It's a classic. Did you have any host housing stories? Any families that you guys stayed with? And you guys might have been in hotels at Redlands. I'm not sure what your setup was with UHC.
No. They're very famous for their host housing. But what I was going to say that I did cut my teeth in that race. I was a guest rider with Amber Neben in 2009, and I remember Ina Teutenberg, not cutting me any slack. And I think she went on to win that race, as a matter of fact. And I have been time cut at that race. So, everybody, it's usually a good marker or indicator for the rest of the year on how your off season went. You'd come from San Dimas and kind of prepping, for the season. And then you come into Redlands and it is full gas, especially with that crit as well. It's technical. It's the first technical crit of the year. And then you have Sunset Loop that is just brutal, and it's a good marker for a lot of the teams and individuals on how they're going to be for the rest of the year.
Yeah, a perfect mix of the different disciplines of racing as well, right? You usually get a time trial in there. Most years they have a prologue to open. And then the classic downtown crit, the Sunset Loop Road Race, is, a punchy rolling course. So get a little bit of everything as long as you like climbing, I guess. Most of the road races are pretty tough uphill. They also have that Highland Circuit race. It's usually 5 days of racing at the Redlands Bicycle Classic, and I don't know that there's a single flat day of racing. I don't know that they've ever had a truly flat course at Redlands.
The crit. We'll take the crits flat.
Yeah.
But even that's hard because you have so many corners. Again, Oak Glen, just getting your climber to the base of the climb. in his best position and letting them go and have their day. And then you have some reprieve on sunset, but just over and over, it's just relentless. And then, like you're saying, the host housing, they're out there on the course, and going by the fire station every single lap. It's a lot of fun to be at that race, and I sure do miss it.
And we talk about the host housing. If you've never been to Redlands, it's not like your normal city. Let's say the homes in Redlands are pristine, museum quality, even you could say. It used to be known as Millionaires Row back in the day, where the millionaires of Los Angeles would build their homes in Redlands, a little bit out of the city, a little calmer. It really is beautiful, and there are some incredible homes in Redlands and along the course. It's one of the best parts is just getting to see the scenery and racing in the front yards of these really beautiful homes out there.
And it always has this really nice smell to it. The orange trees are blossoming, I guess, that time of year, or something's going on. But you've been in the winter or you've been somewhere training, and it's, like I said, it's the first marker of the year. So, and it's the first warm weather race, or first big warm weather race, and so it just feels good just to be around all that atmosphere. Downtown, you go to the coffee shop, it's packed with cyclists. The poor locals are wondering what's going on. And then, the whole weekend, it's just great.
Lauren, I have to share some really tough news that I discovered a couple weeks ago. I'm sure you know Augie's Coffee in Redlands. It was the hub of pre-race activity. Augie's has closed due to the COVID pandemic, unfortunately. I think they are moving on from their retail coffee business in Redlands, California. So for all the bike racers out there that were looking forward to getting back and visiting Augie's, I regret to inform you there is no more Augie's in Redlands, California. So we'll pour one out for Augie's out there today. All right, let's get back to our racing. Looks like our first riders are rolling out of the gate. Now, we have Eleanor Wiseman first to take off here. Wiseman was kicked out of her initial start. She had a connection issue, so she lost out on her women's start time. The organizers, acting quickly, got her into the start of the men's race. So Wiseman is going to run her time trial here with the men. Again, it doesn't matter. There's no drafting. It doesn't affect the ride in any way, but we'll be keeping an eye on Eleanor Wiseman, who will be our last woman to finish up here. We'll see if she can beat Jackie Godby's time, although I have a feeling that's going to be really, really tough.
Hey, I think that's great that they let her in. In real world racing, this probably wouldn't have happened. So this is a nice added virtual situation.
Yeah, they actually have a little bit of leeway in their start time. The way that it works on RGT is that the riders get a start time, and then they have a 30-second window to start, and their time doesn't technically start until they cross the line. It's kind of like ski timing, where they break that laser. Once you break that plane, that's when your time starts. So, really no reason that riders should miss out. Good job by the organizers here, acting quickly to make sure that Eleanor Wiseman gets her chance to ride the time trial here. Lauren, you will discover in virtual racing here, just like real life racing, the technicals have a big effect on the racing. Whether your Wi-Fi drops out, or your dog chews the cord, or your kid unplugs it, or somebody gets on to play Call of Duty or watch some Netflix, whatever. Just like in real life, there are technicals, there are mechanicals out there on the road, and it affects the racing. It can have a major impact on how things go out there. We've seen riders lose power. We've seen riders lose Wi-Fi. We've seen riders get disconnected. So it's just like real life racing. You want to make sure your equipment is dialed in, right? You go through, you take your bike to the mechanic, you keep it clean, you make sure you got the right pressure, you make sure you got your chains all lubed up. Well, you got to make sure you got good internet, and you got to make sure that you're updated on all your apps, and you got to make sure that you got a smooth connection. All that stuff goes into being a good virtual bike racer, things that I'm sure bike racers never thought they would have to worry about. I don't even think most bike racers knew what a wireless router was before this year of racing.
Until now, and now they will be super savvy. Yeah, and this will be your flat tire of virtual racing if anything is unplugged or becomes disconnected.
Yeah, hoping that doesn't happen to anyone. Don't forget, we have official Echelon Racing League merchandise in the We Are Nations shop for the Echelon Racing League. Just hit wearenations.com. They've got gear for every team racing in the Echelon Racing League. So if you're here cheering someone on, or you find a favorite rider or favorite team while watching some of the racing, head on over to wearenations.com. Pick up your t-shirts, hoodies, hats. They got all kinds of good stuff from all of our Echelon Racing League teams. Lauren, I know you are just joining us, but I've been working on getting my own line in the We Are Nation's web store. I'm trying to get some announcer gear. What do you think?
I think this is great. I think you should. What are you looking at? What are you doing?
It's mostly just like beer mugs and koozies. It's slippers, bathrobes, that kind of, the kind of things that us announcers need in executing our duties.
Typical Zoom call. If you could just get like from the top up, that would be great. Yeah. Professionalism up here. But yeah.
So still waiting on that to get in the store. I think it's hung up in customs or something. I'm not sure why they haven't. That hasn't gone live yet. I'll work on getting to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
All right, this is Spencer Segbrush that we're watching now from the Canyon Esports team. Pretty strong men's squad as well, along with a community team. I think they call it the Coalition for Canyon Esports squad. There's David Blodgett from Restart Racing.
So Brad, was your pick today Maine then for the men?
Boy, that's a tough one. It's I'm going to say no because I don't think Maine is a time trialist. I think he's a sprinter. I don't think he was really looking forward to the uphill time trial out there today. I think it's probably a long-distance rider, like maybe someone like Patrick Wally for the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team. So we'll see. I like to wait until we have the intermediate splits before I make my calls. That's a little pro tip for you. Just wait until you get the intermediate splits. Then you're wrong a lot less.
Yeah, I like to have the finish time, and then I know exactly who to pick.
There you go. That's how I do my stock picks. I just pick them at the end of the day. All right, here's another rider that we've seen a lot of in the Echelon Racing League. Charlie Velez for the Canyon Esports team. Now, this guy rides out of his mind. This guy is an incredibly aggressive rider. It says Hugh Dog Racing there, but he actually rides for the Canyon Esports team. This is a guy that will absolutely break his bike one day on the trainer. I mean, you talk about punishing the bike underneath you. This guy looks for pretty much every watt that he can find underneath him. It's always a pleasure watching Charlie Velez race. Oh, my apologies. Charlie Velez is on Hugh Dog Racing. He was a January 1 transfer. So, Lauren, all the team transfer window opens up January 1st for the Echelon Racing League for virtual racing. So, a lot of these riders change teams kind of mid-season. So, I'm still getting caught up. Velez moving from Canyon Esports to Hugh Dog. Now you know.
Yeah. Isn't that always the transition you're trying to figure out? And you get halfway through the season, you know on what every team everybody's on, and then everybody changes jerseys the following year, and it throws you for a loop for a little bit, for a couple weeks.
Yeah, as if riders changing teams wasn't hard enough, then the team's got to change the jerseys, and it's just, it's tough out here for us announcers. But we're getting by. We're hanging in there.
If anybody can handle it, you can, Brad. You're doing great.
I've seen some things in my announcing career. I can handle anything. I grew up announcing Super Week. I can do anything.
Yeah.
Charlie Velez about to catch Blodgett here. His 32nd rider up ahead. Velez is definitely a rider that we expect to have good results. Here you go. This is what I was talking about, Laura. Remember I said he beats up the bike underneath him? He just has so much movement on the bike.
That's great. Yeah, this is fun part to see also is the pain cave, see how they're actually riding the trainer, riding their bike, throwing themselves around. This is just about as interesting as actually watching the race.
Yeah, we're still working on a more accurate translation to the avatar, to the game character, because you're right, it's such a big, they look so calm in the video game, and then we see them on camera, and they don't look calm, let's say.
We definitely need a hurt face in the virtual world, please.
Brad, are you able to hear me?
Hey, we got Frankie back. Frankie, welcome back.
I just had to. I was trying to talk for like 5 minutes, but I just had to refresh it, and so I'm glad to be back. So I don't know what the heck was going on, but you and Lauren were you guys were holding ship very good. So not a problem.
Well, actually, we were talking about virtual racing mechanicals and technicals that you have. So you just had one. You had your first announcer technical.
Well, yeah, my second announcer technical after that AT&T truck showed up outside my house the last time. But no, we're all good.
Right.
We're all good right now. But one thing you guys were talking about, or not talking about, but you had shown was Charlie Velez, and very aggressive rider, out of the saddle, and he won the amateur time trial that they had last weekend. So he knows this course. He knows the kind of effort he needs to put out. So that's definitely one of the favorites to watch out for today is Velez.
Yeah, you can always read those the amateur races the week before. They always give a really good idea of who's going to do well, because it's typically the riders that are out there reconning the course, the riders that are really focusing on getting a good effort, and that usually means doing the amateur race the week before so that they can get a little bit of recon. Here's Chris Navin out of Chicago, Illinois, with the Triple X Racing Kit, one of the larger clubs out of Chicago, and the team of Jackie Gobby, the Triple X Atletico team. Frankie, you see these guys a lot racing around the Midwest.
Yeah, Triple X Atletico, definitely. And Navin, he's done 17 Ironmans. I mean, talk about a time trial expert. That's a lot. So he's put in his time. The 39-year-old, like you mentioned, out of Chicago, we can see him out on course right now. So these time splits we saw, in the women's race, we saw a couple that were pretty close. The other one's a little bit spread out. I think we're going to have in the men's race a few more that are going to be very close in those intermediate time split on the lower portion of the course, as they're going to be kind of saving something for that 20% grade.
All about timing out there. Navin keeping it pretty steady here. I'm watching the wattage and the power numbers for these riders. Lauren, I think that's probably the art for the first half of this, right, is to try to minimize the flow and churn of your power. Try to keep that steady on the flat part where you can. Control what you can, right? And then it all goes out the window when you hit the climb.
Exactly. Control the controllables. Have a pretty high cadence, keep that lactic acid flushed out of the legs as much as possible, not having them load up too much, and then expecting this full bore effort on the hill, on that 20% grade, and then it ever so slightly pans out towards the finish. If you have anything left, that's nothing but a sprint to the finish, and just as you saw in the women's race, it's just full gas all the way to the finish, even if you have nothing left.
Yeah, Jackie Godby talked a little bit about warming up, her prep sort of in the 20, 30 minutes beforehand. For a race like this, what would the warm-up look like? I mean, is it the same as you would be warming up for a long time trial?
It's funny. I being a racer and seeing all the different time trial specialists. I raced with Amber Neben, Kristen Armstrong. I was around Claire Hughes, and Claire Hughes would warm up on the trainer for almost 2 hours prior to a time trial. And then you have somebody, it's more dialed and more efficient for a 20 or 30 minute warm up. Seems more on average, more normal. But yeah, I remember Clara wanting, complete silence, nothing around her for the first, 2 hours to warm up. And I just couldn't imagine. So yeah, I imagine all of these racers are probably about the same, like Godby said, having a good warm up and a cool down, because it's going to be very important for tomorrow's effort.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of it comes down to just personal preference, knowing your body, knowing what you respond to best. Maybe some of that has to do with your training, how you prepared for the ride in. But yeah, it's been interesting to see the riders approach this in various different ways. Frankie, any weird time trial stories from your career? You ever have any teammates with weird time trial warm-ups?
I generally like to ride on the road. I'd go out and ride on the road for like an hour and a half and then come back and just do a little bit on the turbo. Other guys would do a little bit more on their turbo trainer. And no, I wouldn't say anything weird other than, and I'm just going to call it out, idiots missing their start times. To me, it doesn't make any sense on how can someone miss their start time. So at least in the virtual world, I don't think you can run into that. Yep, exactly. Yeah. You had one job. We were just seeing those images of Hal Blackburn, and I was thinking he's from Great Britain, so that means he's out here doing a time trial, and it's 2 a.m. And so that's got to be a little bit of a
rebel as well here.
There you go. That's got to be a little bit of shock to the system, and they got to worry about keeping it quiet for the family at the same time putting out the energy that they need to do. But Blackburn, also, he was third on both days of the amateur Redlands Classic that they had. And so, looking to be able to put in a good ride. He's racing for Restart Racing. He has good power. Look, you see 432. His FTP, which means the power you can hold over 20 minutes, is almost 400 watts, which is a huge amount. So a time trial actually fits into his racing style very well for Hal Blackburn.
Yeah, one of those riders with just insane numbers. But again, it's all been verified here in the Echelon Racing League. They are the real deal. And Blackburn going to get a chance to put his numbers to the test here in a little bit as he gets to the tough part of the time trial course here, or the prologue course, I guess I should call it, where things kick uphill pretty quickly. All right, first intermediate splits. Charlie Velez with the fastest split of the day. Charlie Revel, who we were just taking a look at, a little farther back. These are big splits from Velez back to Revel and Beek with a 754 for Revel, a 756 for Beek, and an 813 split for Hal Blackburn here. So, Frankie, you called it. Charlie Velez killing it out here today.
Yeah, killing it. I mean, he's going to have some big power numbers as Velez is trying to be able to, follow up on what he did during the amateur races there. So, but he has good results already. I mean, Velez is not a stranger to the RGT platform. He won the Pattersburg. He was fourth at Stelvio. He didn't really race the last couple races. I think he missed the gate. Young 22-year-old with a big opportunity here to be able to, take day number one at Redlands, but he's going to have to hold off a lot of other good riders.
Yeah, this is a great pickup for Hugh Dog Racing. Good get from Canyon Esports. This is another rider that I'm really excited to watch on the road, and I really hope that he can find the support to kind of mount a full season of racing, because I think there's a lot of potential here for a guy like Charlie Velez. Again, it's not about the incredible numbers that he can do, but the way that he can bury himself, and that comes in handy. There's a mental switch that some riders have and some riders don't. Charlie Velez has the ability to go deep and put himself in the hurt box, Frankie.
No, I agree. You want that kind of passion, you want that kind of heart, you want that kind of mental tenacity to just fight it out. And Velez is exactly a type of rider. You can teach him how to draft and how to corner and how to not overlap a wheel and all that stuff, which I'm sure they already know a little bit, but that's all teachable moments. And so that power that he has would translate very well over towards learning how to fight for position. I have a criterion as we go back here to Hal Blackburn, and Hal looks very comfortable, like I mentioned, just putting out those 400 watts that he's comfortable with, and he's just going to keep it steady, and you just got to kind of grit it and get over the 20% part of the climb.
Well, you can see the different style of riding here for Blackburn, who's really not pushing a big gear. He's spinning a relatively high cadence for being on the steepest part of the course here. A lot of riders were pushing that big gear out of the saddle, rocking side to side, but Blackburn's hardly moving. I mean, his shoulders are barely moving side to side on his zoom cam, so this is going to be the high cadence, high gear approach here for Hal Blackburn.
And Lauren, that was one thing I was curious with Jacqueline Godby, because she was on that time trial bike. If she had to go into the small chain ring, or even if she had enough gearing in the back to be able to spin it. You would think virtual racing, you're not going to need a huge cassette in the back to spin it, but on a 20% uphill, there's different riding styles. Did you usually push a bigger gear, or were you a spinner to try to get over something steep?
Spin to win, mash for cash. I would always want to spin as much as possible. I want my legs to feel good all the time, as much as as a sprinting. And I kind of learned that from Kristen Armstrong. She was a high cadence rider, and I'm just wondering, Godby, maybe that's just her bike that's on the trainer, and she's changed out the gears, her front chain rings, or just to be specific for e-racing.
Or specific for this course, yeah. That's a great point. We still have, Hal Blackburn's putting in a good time. Still got to watch out. I'm curious. Tom Thrall, Matt Main, Matt Oosburn. These are all big riders that have done very, very well in some of the other RGT races. And one thing that, Brad, you've talked about this a lot, learning how to race RGT with these corners, maybe not as critical in a time trial like this, because you're not doing repeated laps around the corners trying to keep up with anybody. It's a little bit more of a steady effort.
Charlie Velez inside 1K as he goes under the red banner. Guys, we got an update from the UK. I had to do a little bit of research because we're Americans, so this looks like 35 seconds to me in the UK, but it turns out that means it's 35 minutes after midnight. We measure in miles, we do feet, we do inches. And we do 12-hour clocks here in the United States. So yeah, just past midnight over in the UK.
No more excuses for real-life bike racers for early starts or late races.
Yeah, I don't ever want to hear about an 8 o'clock time trial start when there's a guy in the UK doing a midnight start for his virtual time trial. All right, first finishers on the way in. This is going to be Hal Blackburn hitting the line. He will be one of our first early times. In fact, first time to hit the line for Hal Blackburn here. Now, he had the 6th fastest intermediate split, so going to be watching for the riders around him to be coming in soon and see where he ends up.
One thing that caught my eye is looking at the split is William Harden, like, 8, 9, 10, almost 3.5 minutes down William Harden in the first time split. And, you know, he won the Giro della Montagna, a strong rider. So not sure what happened with him right there, but Velez still holds that fastest time split.
Eleanor Wiseman had a good split as well. 10th fastest with the guys.
Velez going all out, heart rate at 205.
It'll be interesting to see Godby on where she finishes with our men's time trial. I think she'll be surprisingly up there.
There's Michael Swart from Restart Racing. Looks like we are still waiting on an intermediate split from Swart. I think he has just rolled out of the start house, so we'll see where he drops in. Meanwhile, it sounds like Charlie Velez on the way in here. And here we go. You can see the last 300-meter marker for Velez there in the upper left corner of your picture. And I love watching Charlie Velez finish an indoor race.
One of those parts you have to be able to time the effort up the climb and to be able to get over the climb to be able to get to the finish. But look at Velez, completely spent. I mean, that is a big, big effort from him.
I tell you, ride like that, I hope he doesn't have carbon handlebars because there's some micro cracks in those things after an effort like that. This is one for the alloys. This is one for the old Ritchie handlebars.
Oh, look at that. Look at that new time split for Brad.
I'm going to flag this one at 1:31 for Jan Decker. I'm gonna file a protest here.
Is this where you say unplug and replug, please?
Yeah, go ahead and restart your machine there, Jan Decker. We'll get an updated split time from Deca. Meanwhile, Blodgett heading in for the final 200 meters of racing.
Blodgett for Restart Racing. He's out of Madison, Wisconsin. 450, 470 watts. I mean, this is a big power. It's a big effort he's putting in towards the finish with only about 80 meters to go.
Don't forget, heading to Joe Martin Stage Race after this, February 5th through 7th in the Echelon Racing League. Then it's the Indy Crit on February 20th before we wrap up the series with the Tour of America's Dairyland, March 11th through 14th. One of our favorite races of the year. Always fun to see Frankie up there in Wisconsin at Tour of America's Dairyland. We're going to be getting back together for the virtual Tour of America's Dairyland this March. You can see all the events on EchelonRacingLeague.com. They have the full schedule up there for amateur riders and our pro league. All right, Bika on the way in now.
That's Charlie Beek. Also out of Great Britain, so racing a little bit after midnight, as we were corrected. 24-year-old, racing for Team Tour 2000 as Charlie Ravel now makes his way up towards the finish. Well, it's Chris Navin, 39 years old. He was 18th early on at one of our very first RGT races, Borrego Springs, racing for Triple X Athletico out of Chicago.
All right, so Navin wrapping up for Triple X Athletico. They'll move him off the side of the course. And Millar up next.
Lauren, did you like doing time trials?
Does anybody like doing time trials, Frankie?
Yeah.
Yes.
There
are absolutely people that love doing time trials. Like, they would get excited for a time trial. I was not one of them. I mean, Kristen Armstrong would be somebody excited for a time trial. Chloe Dygert would be somebody excited. Dave Zabriskie, you know, and so there are people that did like it. So now, Lauren, I don't know, not so much probably.
No, never. Actually, when I was training for team time trials for World, and you actually ride that bike often. Yeah, I liked them then just to see where my effort was and how I was doing. And I think I made top 10 at Nationals one year, and I was very stoked on that. Other than that, no, do not put me on a TT bike. I do not want to do a time trial. I would much rather have a crit any day, any road race, any day.
Yeah, the Venn diagram of riders that like the time trial and like the other disciplines is pretty small. Pretty small overlap between riders that enjoy the time trial and riders that enjoy the other disciplines. Here's Mike Swart for the Restart Racing team, also behind some of our results databases here on RGT and the Echelon Racing League. This is one of the more industrial pain caves that we see.
Is that a disco ball in the back left corner?
So I will say, Lauren, you missed it earlier. Mike Swart is one of the more fun guys in the league here. For the Christmas races, right before Christmas, he was racing in a Santa hat headband thing. So yeah, he's not afraid to mix things up a little bit. Look at this pain face here. Oy, oy, oy.
Straight on too. That's great.
This guy looks like he's coming for my soul.
Some of the other pain caves looked more like a party room.
Yeah.
Dance floor.
Yeah, we'll take a look at some of our best pain caves for the men here as Millar makes his way in. Millar doesn't even have a pain cave. He didn't even turn on his Zoom camera today. This is kind of what we were talking about before with the effort that you have to put in to be a good or a pro virtual racer. A lot of riders struggle with bandwidth too, right? You can't have the game and maybe your team chat, maybe a Zoom with your coach or whatever. Each one of those apps takes up some bandwidth, and so some riders just can't do it all. They can't run a Zoom and run the race because they just don't have the internet connection for it.
Well, we just saw earlier, Emmett Culp, Hangar 15 was a race invited just for the Redlands race. So glad to be able to see them here as McKinney comes through. Well, Emmett Culp racing for Digital Commerce Bank, DC Bank, out of Culp is out of Portland, Oregon. So 200 meters to go for him.
Yeah, we'll let Culp hit the line here and then take a look at some of our finish times coming in now. See if Mason McKinney was able to get past Charlie Velez. Because remember, McKinney had the second fastest intermediate split. And looks like he just went through. So this is Hardin, Wally, and Culp on your screen now. And looks like Culp is going to be headed into the finish line.
I like the crowd noise. It's a great added touch.
All right, here's where things stand right now with Charlie Velez in. Looks like Beat came just 2.4 seconds behind him. That'll be a close one. 17:02, the time to beat for Velez here. Spencer Segbush sitting in third right now for Canyon Esports at 11 seconds down. Charlie Revel at 47 seconds down, and Hal Blackburn at 53 seconds down. But still some talent out there on course. Still a lot of riders that are going to have a legitimate shot at dethroning Charlie Velez and trying to knock down that 17:02 time for Velez. Here's Will Harden on the way, and this is a guy who had a good split. We can expect a good time from him.
Yeah, Will Harden will be hoping for a good time. I think he's going to be a little bit disappointed with how maybe the bottom part of the time trial went. But Velez with that 7:27, so the intermediate time was 7:27. His finishing time, 17:02. He's going to be happy with that because Velez actually beat his amateur, when he did the amateur Redlands on the exact same course, he beat his time by 3 seconds. So being able to go 3 seconds faster is going to be a big motivating factor for Velez.
Here's another one to watch. Patrick Wally working his way through. This is a rider, Frankie, that I would expect to see in the top 10 today. I think this is a good course for him. He definitely has the natural power. It's just a matter of timing this effort, timing the time trial, but certainly knows how to go deep.
And he has the experience on the RGT platform, has done many of the races that we've had on the Echelon Racing League. And so Patrick Wally, very familiar with the way the turns affect you, the way the roads affect you. And so he's going to be looking to put in a good ride.
So here comes Wally to the line. Now again, the time you see on the screen is not accurate. We're just following these riders with our camera bots. Here is Zach Nair making a pass on Deca. Nair with the fourth fastest split, 7:52 to Charlie Velez's 7:27. You can absolutely make that time up on the second half of this course. So we'll let him hit the line, process the time, and then see where Zach Nair ends up for the Project Echelon team.
Zach Nair, 24 years old, racing for Project Echelon. He's a Marion graduate, so he got into racing there and find out what his final time will be there as we go back to Warren now, a little bit further down in the course. 500 meters to go. Man, after coming up over a 20% grade and then it still gradually goes uphill, that's tough. You know, it's not like all of a sudden you get to the downhill, it doesn't plateau, it continues to climb. It's like you're putting in a massive effort and pretty much kind of having to sustain that effort to get to the finish line.
Good look at Randy Warren, one of our Masters riders in the field. Just goes to show you, Frankie, you can still get out there. It's not too late.
This looks way too painful.
I support you, Frankie. I think you can do it.
Nah, way too painful. No, it's fun watching these guys, especially the young ones. You can see the difference. It seems like the older Masters guys, if you're like 35 or above, it's like you kind of go to a certain effort and you kind of hold it there, whereas the young guys are just thrashing themselves.
Yeah.
This is true.
Kids these days, I'll tell you what, they watch a couple episodes of GCN, they buy their first Specialized, and next thing you know, they're out there ripping up a Cat 5 crit.
It's just gaming, guys.
Right. All right, Randy Warren on the way in. Didn't show up in the top 10 of the intermediate split. We'll see if he can maybe try and slip in there. For the finish, we'll go back to Schwent and Cowley. Looks like Schwent going to catch Cowley just before they hit the line, but that'll be inconsequential to the top 10 overall. I don't think either one of them had top 10 intermediate split.
And I would agree, if you're not in the top 10 in the intermediate sprint, you're really not going to be in the top 10 by the finish. I think it'd be way too difficult to be able to make up that much time on the strong riders that already put in good times on the first half of this course. As we're looking for a couple Canadians. There's Dubrick and Cameron are out on course now, trying to be able to, right now 385 watts, so a good effort we're seeing here from Dubrick. In that upper right-hand corner with Dubick, he early on, he did a lot of the RGT races. He did Borrego Springs, he did Pattersburg, and he did the Stelvio, finishing top 10 in all of those. And so it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of translate that early fitness, that climbing prowess, into a good result here on this uphill time trial for Dubick.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this climb lines up with the Sunset Loop Road Race Course climb, I guess we'll call it, that they have to go up and over tomorrow. It's still pretty short. I think this one's even shorter than the uphill section of Sunset Loop tomorrow, but it'll be interesting to see if any of these early names show up on the climbs tomorrow for Sunset Loop and then Oak Glen on Sunday. This is Ryan Rotherham, who turned in a 5th intermediate split with 7:53. So Rotherham may be in the running here for a top 5 ride on the day.
Yeah, and you remember Rotherham, Brad, he's the one that took the flyer a few times in some of the races, challenging everybody. So strong rider, the 21-year-old out of Canada. He's a tall guy too, 6'3", skinny, 150 pounds. So that climber time trial kind of a physique could play very well today.
Oh man,
they thrashed themselves. The young guys don't care.
Wow. Good.
Reggie, this is exactly what you were talking about. This is why you don't race against kids, because they can race like that.
They will turn themselves inside out completely, and that's the biggest difference between the young, and it's great to see, you know, like I said, like 30 or 25 and under compared to 30 and over, it's a night and day difference.
I think he's putting on a headset.
Going to be playing in One Direction. Maybe not. That was just Emil Sosnowski, who was on there. The Ontiveros and Wattendorf. Yeah, another team that was invited here was DC Bank, along with the Hangar 15 riders. So good to be able to see them coming here. So we're looking at Ontiveros, who just finished up. He raced for the University of Oregon last year. As we move on towards Parrish.
All right, guys, this is Ryan Rotherham, who we just saw wrap up his ride. Ryan, first off, thanks for jumping on here. That last climb looked brutal, man. That was a pain face for the ages. How you feeling? Harder than you thought?
Well, I was able to ride it a couple times this morning, which helped a lot because had I not pre-rode it, I didn't expect a 25% wall at the end, and knowing that it came, I guess, helped a little bit. It didn't feel any easier. But I was able to save a little bit, and I think that helped a fair bit. It was a tough course, though.
Yeah, does this give you any insight for Sunset Loop Road Race tomorrow? I mean, do you start thinking this might be harder tomorrow than I thought?
Well, yeah, like I haven't pre-rode Sunset yet. I rode the Oak Glen stage. But I think this whole weekend is just going to be really, really difficult. All the courses, I don't think it's going to be too easy to take them easy. So I'll pre-ride Sunset tomorrow morning, see how that is. I don't expect it to be easy. I think the amateur race broke up pretty good, so I would expect nothing less rest tomorrow, but it'll be fun.
Always good to get a little bit of intel. Ryan, thanks so much. We'll let you get a little rest, and we'll see you out there tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, some more riders on the way. It looks like Parrish finishing up now, as these should be our final riders out on course finishing up. I think we're down to our last handful of riders to finish up here. Ben Thomas with a good intermediate split while we were in there. Look at this, guys. Thomas and Velez tying the intermediate split here. Frankie, this is going to be exciting to watch at the end of this.
Yeah, this is going to come down to the seconds. So, yeah, and Matt Usborne right there also. So this is what we're talking about. Thrall, I'm not sure where is, but Usborne, Marshall, Velez, Thomas, and we know Thomas has been on fire lately just because he's leading the series and seems to be up there in every single race that he does.
Yeah, Ben Thomas, obviously a strong time trialist as well. He's a mountain biker, an endurance rider, a coach as well. So he understands the physiology behind being a good indoor racer, being a good virtual racer here in the Echelon Racing League. So Ben Thomas looking to widen his lead in the overall here at the Echelon Racing League with the, well, they tied intermediate split on the day with Charlie Velez.
And interesting, Ben Thomas didn't race the amateur Redlands. Matt Usborne did, Charlie Velez did. Thomas chose not to, but I'm sure he previewed the course. Just like Rutterham was telling us, you know, he previewed the course, and really it was important that he did that so he could know the course. I'm sure Ben Thomas in preparation has pre-ridden this course to be able to get ready for this first day.
Yeah, it really does make a difference, especially in the virtual racing. I think you get a really good idea, and it's really important to have an idea of how hard that last climb is. Lauren, just like real life, you want to go recon the course, but most importantly, you recon that final climb. You recon the part of the course that you think is going to affect the race the most that day.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hearing talking about how hard the climb was for this time trial, and then to kind of put that into mindset for tomorrow. And he's gonna, check out the Sunset Loop in the morning. Doing your due diligence is super important for winning a race, and just in real life as in virtual. So it's a lot of fun to hear them talk about doing their recon.
Here's Eric Hill finishing up for the Project Echelon Racing team, also one of the commissioners of the Echelon Racing League. Teammates with John Heinlein here. And guys, sounds like our last rider just went through the intermediate split, so our entire field through the halfway marker. Here's Bruce Bird on the way, and this is another guy who always has a good pain face. Let's see if we can check in with Bruce Bird.
Bruce Bird, 52 years old also. I don't know if he's going to be turning himself completely inside out, but oh, look at him. He's breathing. He is suffering there. It's got a little powdered donuts on the bottom of his tin there. I'll give him credit, though. 52 years old, coming out here racing for Draft Racing. And think about this. We talk about the FTP. He has a 435 watts for his functional threshold power. I mean, that is enormous. And so it's very impressive for him to be able to do that. He was actually, 2019, he was the Grand Fondo World Champion in the time trial.
I love this, and he's animating how difficult the course and the ride was for us. So thank you, Bruce.
I think he'd disagree with Frankie about turning himself inside out.
All right, back to Tom Thrall now, another standout rider for the Insure presented by Pedal to Power Team. Frankie, this is a guy who we watched take some stage wins in the Echelon Racing League, but the big question, can he time trial?
Yeah, this is the one. This is kind of the rider I've been waiting for to see how he's going to do. I think, Charlie Velez is definitely going to be up there, but I was waiting for Thrall to see what kind of a performance he can put in after the way he dominated Tour of the Gila. So coming out of Nashville, Tennessee, Tom Thrall has been on fire pretty much for much of the RGT series.
So, Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the Mash for Cash stage that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but look at his
For
legs.
some-
He can match for
Yeah.
cash. My God.
I know.
Go ahead.
That's a sprinter doing a time trial.
Yep.
Exactly.
Now I'm curious. I'm curious the times. I'm going to be very curious also with Ben Thomas, our overall points leader. He's been very consistent also throughout all of the races that we've been having here. Second at Borrego, 6th at Pattersburg, 1st at Stelvio, 2nd at Doylestown. He knows how to finish up very well. One thing I was thinking about is that with the virtual race, like in a time trial, more so than in a road race, equipment can really make a big difference. In other words, the aerodynamic frame, the aerodynamic wheels, what size dish you have, aero helmet, like that stuff can really make a difference. But in the virtual world, I don't think as much.
Frankie, I feel like in the virtual world, it's more important your fan setup and the mental stimulus that you have.
Yeah, it really does
In your
matter trying to stay cool. We've seen riders try ice vests. We've seen riders racing outside. A lot of riders were getting out of the house to try to get the cooler temperatures, and then some riders just going with a massive number of fans or just a few massive size fans to try to get out there. Mike Swartz saying, "I am too old for this," and then he followed that up with, "Woof." Good, accurate depiction of the time trial ride here today from Mike Swartz. All right, so here's Ben Thomas on the way, and this will be one of our last riders to finish. And I think just a couple more out there, so we should be getting some updated times here pretty soon. But I'm going to guess Ben Thomas is going to be pretty far up there because he was tied with Charlie Velez on the intermediate sprint. Here's Austenfeld and Usborne going at it, although Austenfeld looks to have cracked as Matt Usborne goes right by him here.
Yeah, and those are two familiar names that we've talked about on the RGT platform. But Usborne, he did both that amateur Redlands, so he's going to be familiar with this course, and he's going to be looking to be able to put in a good ride. We have seen him turn himself inside out more than a few times. And so Usborne, the Canadian, former pro mountain biker, putting in a big effort out in Cell Block C there.
Nice to see he's using his recreation time for good use. Usborne at 75 meters before they kick him off the yard.
If you're a pro mountain biker, you're gonna know how to suffer. And Usborne just really showed it. I mean, that's a pretty impressive effort that we just saw by him. And so I think, it's got to be difficult for these riders too, because they're finishing. Normally you can turn over, see a clock, and know how you finished. They don't have any idea, I don't think, of what their finishing times are.
Yeah, they would have to either check RGTDB or check it in the app. The app does show the riders the top 10 finishers after they come through. All right, so it looks like just 3 remaining out there as we see Chris Ray on the way in now.
So unofficially, Brad, I'm seeing here Ryan Rutterham possibly with the win, unofficially Ben Thomas in second, and unofficially Matt Usborne in third, with Velez maybe in fourth. But I'm going to wait for you guys to be able to figure that out and confirm that. But what a ride if that holds up for Ryan Rutterham.
Yeah, Rutterham with the fast time now, and just a couple riders remaining here. This is Matt Main, our big star from last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, at Gateway Cup, winning 2 days there. as looks like he's into the final couple hundred meters here.
Yeah, Maine, the Gateway champion in short pedal power coming out of Iowa. He's a senior product engineer and definitely has figured out how to do the virtual racing extremely well, as he won the Giro della Montagna and at Benton Park at 34 years old.
All right, so Matt Main hitting the line, and that'll wrap up his day. A cooked Matt Main praying to the gods of the handlebar. Please make this pain go away.
Just spin it out, man.
Meanwhile, Chris Ray going up to 1K. Rides like this, you want to check Craigslist the day after for some good bike deals. A lot of times, when you have a course like this, you can usually get a fire sale bike day after a hard ride like this. So, pro tip out there if you're looking for a new bike: hang out around like a triathlon. Hey, look for some people finishing their first triathlons. You might be able to see that bike for sale on eBay the very next day.
Pretty surprising. Matt Main in those unofficial results showed him almost a minute down on Rutherham.
Yeah, Main wasn't sure how he would be able to time trial. He said, I'm really a sprinter. I'm not sure if I can climb or time trial. So I guess that was answered. He can't. Amateur racing continuing in the Echelon Racing League with Joe Martin Stage Race, January 20th. Amateur riders can sign up on echelonracingleague.com. Just click on the Races tab. Again, free to enter, and the RGT platform is free to race. So as long as you have your smart trainer, smart bike, then you can race for free in the Echelon Racing League.
We were just looking at Chris Ray out of Ontario, California, racing for Support Clean Sport Guten Plan Coaching. As Ray, the Guten Plan Coaching, those bright green jerseys, very distinctive. They stand out as Ray now just getting to the top. This has got to be so hard, though. You know, when you're on a steep uphill like this, and you normally when you see 200 meters, you think, hey, I'm almost there. It's 200 meters away. On a steep uphill like this, 200 meters, 300 meters takes obviously 3 times, 4 times as long. And so it's very deceiving, especially if you see 750, that's like forever.
It's like when you're riding in the mountains and you see the next peak over and you're like, we're just going to ride over there to the next peak. It looks so close.
Especially after doing that effort, and then you got to continue to go hard, even though it flattens out ever so slightly. You have to push yourself that much harder to get through to the finish line. It's brutal.
Well, the good news is for the non-climbers, there's only a little bit more climbing remaining in the Echelon Racing League. I think there's a little bit of climbing at Joe Martin, but Indy Crit mostly flat. Dirty Reaver is a pretty hilly course. That's sort of a gravel course that they're going to be racing on the second day of that weekend. And then Tour of America's Dairyland, I think they're doing mostly flat courses. I don't think they're doing like the Schlitz Park course. That's always a classic up at Toad with a big hill. But I think they're going to be running mostly flat courses for the most part. So good news for the vertically challenged riders in the Echelon Racing League here. So Chris Ray working his way in right now. This will be the last rider on course for the Support Clean Sport Seasucker Guten Plan coaching team. Did that off the top of my head.
One of the longest names out there, isn't it? It's crazy. Racing out of California, we talked about. Had some good wins last year. Won the Santa Anita Park Criterium in the Masters 35 Plus. As we look at our final results, man, what a ride by Ryan Rutherham from Draft Racing with Ben Thomas from Team Tour 2000 Callis finishing second in that podium with Matt Usborne. Brad, pretty much it's a who's who of the names that we've been seeing for the last few weeks.
I'm really psyched for Ryan Rutherham. Finally got a win here. Lauren, this was a guy who we saw riding on the front. He was the guy that would go on the solo flyer that gets caught on the last lap. You really started to feel bad for the guy. And finally gets the win here for draft racing and the opening prologue of the Redlands Bicycle Classic. So great ride from Ryan Ritterham as he turns in a 16:37. Ben Thomas going to end up second place. That should be fine for Thomas in the overall at just under 4.5 seconds down on Ritterham. Usborne will end up third place with Charlie Velez pulling out a fourth place finish for Hugh Dog Racing, and Charlie Beek in fifth place for Team Tour 2000. Much closer here in the men's race than we saw in the women's race, guys. There really isn't the dominant player like Jackie Godby in the women's race we have in the men's field here. So, Lauren, this should be really exciting when we head to the Sunset Loop Road Race tomorrow for the pro men, doing that classic Sunset Loop course. But the question is, do these riders that did well in the time trial do well on the 40-mile-ish Sunset Loop course? Going to be a whole lot different out there.
Sounds like you better do your recon tomorrow morning to really know what it feels like. Get a hold of that course.
Yeah, I think a lot of riders probably learning the lesson, the importance of reconning the course, especially today, because there were a lot of riders that were definitely caught off guard by that final climb. So an interesting run there for the riders in our opening time trial, but Ryan Ritterham takes the win for the pro men and finally gets to stand on the top step of the podium. Frankie, final thoughts from you.
Pretty impressive. I'm glad for Ritterham to be able to get this. We talked about his thin nature, 6'3", 150 pound. I mean, it worked out perfectly, and you have to take advantage of that when you can. So if he gets the lead, he has the lead, this should play out well for the hilly days that will be coming up. And Jacqueline Godby, just so impressive. I was just looking up her time. She would have been top 22 in the men's peloton. I mean, she is just an incredible rider with a ton of power. And so I think having some teammates, which she doesn't really have, the women's race could still be up for grabs as we get into some very hard Sunset Loop in Oak Glen, which, Lauren, you as well know, these are some tough races still to come.
Oh, 100%.
Lauren, having raced that Sunset Loop Road Race course, I mean, one of the toughest races in America.
No doubt. Just relentless, over and over. Get the fan going, get your mental state right, and get after it. Turn on some good music, apparently.
Well, racing continues tomorrow with the Sunset Loop Road Race with a noon start for our pro women. Going to be first to take off, so congratulations once again to Ryan Ritterham taking the win today for draft racing, turning in a blistering 16:37, fastest time of the day for the Redlands Bicycle Classic. Opening prologue, the individual time trial at the Echelon Racing League, going just over 6 watts per kilogram on average for Ryan Ritterham. So that's going to do it for us. Congratulations to our winners today, Jackie Godby in the pro women's race, Ryan Ritterham in the pro men's race. For Lauren Hall and Frankie Andreu, my name is Brad Soner saying thanks for watching. We are back to racing at noon Eastern tomorrow for the Echelon Racing League for the legendary Sunset Loop Road Race. We'll see you there.